So welcome to the Global Discussions with creatives, leaders and thinkers. Today I'm joined by Chris Rabbitt. And Chris, you're very welcome to the podcast. Let's begin by asking you to introduce yourself and a little bit about who you are, what you do and some of your journey to our international audience today. So over to you, Chris.
Right, well, good evening, bienvenue, buonasera, and all the rest of it if we're going out around the world. Guten Abend. Thank you very much for having me on, Simon. It's a real pleasure to be here. So my name's Chris Rabbitt. Yes, that is actually the case. That is not a joke. My name is Rabbitt, and my father's name is Peter. And that's not a joke either. That is actually the truth.
You couldn't make that up, Chris.
No, it's absolutely. Most people just most people tell me to foxtrot Oscar when they hear that. But no, it's absolutely true. We asked my grandmother before she passed what on earth was going through her mind, and as a good Catholic lady, she said, "Well, we just like the name Peter." Fair enough. Crack on. I want to call my daughter Jessica.
No Roger, right?
No, I wanted to call my daughter Jessica, but the wife was having none of it.
Okay, I had to ask.
Yeah, no, there's no Roger, sadly. But yeah, my name's Chris Rabbitt. I am one of the co-founders of a business called Meow. We are an on-demand online networking platform with a global audience. We started we are a COVID baby. We started in May 2020 with an idea called a Zoom a day. So you could tell how permanent we expected this business to be. So we started with a Zoom a day, which was essentially an idea to bring 4 people once a day together for an hour, just to get over the, 12 weeks of COVID. And 2.5 years later, we're bigger than we've been, with a bigger audience, more reach with our own IP and all the rest of it. So we launched our own platform back in April 21. And we've grown and honed and iterated that to something that looks really beautiful now, is really nice to use, and actually is gaining some real traction with some big communities out there. So people like Barclays Eagle Labs and Startup Grind and things like that are beginning to adopt Meow as a way to communicate between centres. So that's us. Any investors out there, we are currently fundraising. Because growing a tech business is a cash hungry beast, especially in a day and age where nobody wants to pay for anything. Yeah, that's where we are. So the fact is, one of the things people actually often say to us is, well, how are you different from Zoom? And I think the really easy way to describe that, or way to explain that, is just people you don't know. Okay, so if I wanted to have a chat with you and 2 other people at 6 o'clock, I would have to go find you. I would have to make contact with you. I'd have to give you a reason to want to talk to me. I would then have to do the same twice more with 2 other people, and then get all our diaries to agree, and then hope that we all turned up. And the thing is with Meow is we do all that bit beforehand, and all you need to do is turn up on the hour, click a button, and we'll put you together with people who we think you'll have a nice time with. We don't try and match people who are going to do business together, because I'll be honest, you go to a networking event hoping you're going to meet a customer and close a sale on the night, you are sorely mistaken, my friend. Your best bet is to go and bring value, go in a giving mindset, go and hope that you can begin a relationship or forward and continue a relationship. And then the good stuff starts to happen. And actually, the way our platform's set up is all about making sure people have good conversations. That's it. We don't promise anything more. We don't say that you'll get anything more other than a good conversation with an interesting few people. But what we do know is you do that with a degree of regularity and the right mindset, and good stuff happens. We've got example after example after example of stuff where people have won business, new clients, some really big deals and things like that, but all from that right mindset.
So, of course, a tech business costs money to grow and to build.
Mm-hmm.
But you've also got I'd imagine, a fairly global user base straight away, because people can pretty much log on from anywhere. Am I right in saying that?
They can, but it's interesting. The video conferencing marketplace, if you like, is an immensely crowded thing, and actually reaching those audiences is extremely tricky. And we really, without being exclusionist or racist or xenophobic or whatever you want to call it, in order to make sure we can grow the most interconnected audience possible, we've just concentrated on the English speaking peoples of the world, or anyone who happen, we haven't gone for sort of translation or anything like that. We can't do that, it's too expensive. And actually, don't need to. If I can crack the UK, Australia and New Zealand and the United States, throw in a bit of South Africa and a few other India, if we can do that, then the rest of the world hopefully will be someone else's problem. But yeah, our audience is instantly global. There is no time when Meow is off the clock, which actually is something that has really hurt us actually in the early days. When we kicked off, because at the time we were doing pre-booked, limited, single meeting sessions every hour. So there was only one meeting going on, so only 4 people. And if you take one of those out, because we had human hosts at the time, only 3 people could book one of those sessions. So what was happening is we were being booked up literally months in advance in some cases. And then we gave that community unlimited choice. And what people do with unlimited choice, we found out, is absolutely nothing. So all the scarce, and as I said, I'm a former sales director, I should have bloody known this. All the scarcity that we had, i.e. there was competition for places and an incentive to book in advance, all vanished. And we're trumpeting about how, you can do it anytime and all this, and it's all good fun and all the rest of it. And people went, oh, great, I don't need to book. Brilliant. So I won't book. And then because I haven't booked, I won't turn up. And so we had a massive job on to get the reins and, turn people's heads, say, right, if you were committed to 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, keep doing it, because there were lots and lots of other people who wanted to do that as well. So keep going. But we had some massive audience engagement problems right at the start, when actually we should have had the easiest ride. So that was really interesting actually, and a massive learning experience about human behavior, particularly where choice is concerned. Really interesting stuff. When I'm old and grey, I might do a PhD and talk about it a bit more, but it was
it sounds like
a
steep learning curve straight away. And it's the user base, right? It's hard to predict user behavior. You think and then it goes a different direction and you have to react.
But that's the whole point, is that we didn't think we were predicting anything. We were being told by our user base on a in fact, on an hourly basis. Oh, this, I can't wait until it goes deregulated. It's going to be great. I can do it any time. I'm so up for it. It's going to be brilliant. Because we were in a situation towards the end of our sort of pre-booking Zoom-based thing, where we were a victim of our own success. If you turned up at, let's say, 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, you knew you would find you, me, and 2 other people who were there at the same meeting last week. Some people liked that, and that was fine. Lots of people didn't. And so we was becoming a situation of just cut and paste every single day. And again, challenges with that. But the whole user piece is the biggest head scratcher I've ever had in my entire life. When you talk about steep learning curves, Simon and I, my business partner, we're both 47 now, and we're dyed-in-the-wool Gen Xers. We understand technology, we understand the world before technology. We have no idea about some of the stuff that is happening now, but that's what we employ Gen Zers for. But we're not idiots. as far as tech is concerned by any stretch of the imagination. I've implemented CRMs in big businesses and stuff. And, we only did this because nobody told us we shouldn't. Guys in the early middle age shouldn't do this, apparently. And actually, given the physical toll it takes on you and the financial toll it takes on your life, I completely agree with them.
But you used the term earlier, a COVID baby company. It was kind of born during the pandemic. And I think the whole world, didn't we? We had no choice. We had to move everything online pretty quick.
Well, my business died.
Yeah.
My previous business died. So I used to be a portfolio sales director, for want of a better word. So I was a gun for hire. You bring me in, sort out your sales team, sort out your commercial team, upskill your existing sales director, work with business owners to teach them how to manage sales teams. You name it, whatever along that spectrum you wanted me to do, I would come and do it. And actually, I was looking down the barrel in 2020 of an absolutely brilliant year. So I had a really good second half of 2019, put a load of legwork in, and had 6 really good customers with pretty much work for me all the year. And then a few little projects on top, and actually some third-party stuff that was giving me an income that I wasn't having to work for. So I was like, yeah, this is sweet. And so much so, I went out and bought myself a big red, shiny BMW S1000 XR motorcycle in February. Several pounds committed, but with the expectation of, super levels of income that year. And then we all got put in prison. And the phone started ringing almost as soon as the lockdown was announced, because it was like, right, okay, this is what furlough is, this is what, okay, blah, blah, blah. And everybody sent their sales teams home. It wasn't a sort of piecemeal thing. Everybody sent their sales teams home. And I had a couple of customers actually that we were doing some fairly heavy restructure that would have involved some fairly unpleasant stuff and would have necessitated, either redundancies or sackings or movings on, let's put it that way. And I'm saying to them, no, as a correctly motivated third-party advisor should, you speak the unspeakable. You go, well, now is our opportunity to do all the unpleasant stuff that we were going to find really difficult to do, and now is an excuse to do that. We need to carry on. And this is not because I was desperate for some work. As it stood, I was, but this is what was best for the company. Carry on. Hold your nerve, carry on. And fair dues, they were both family businesses, both big family businesses, multiple tens of millions of turnover. And in fairness to the owner in question, he said, no, can't do it. It's not the way our business is. I can't do it. I know the commercial reality is exactly what you say it is, but I can't do it. So I'm just going to put them on furlough and we'll deal with this later. Fair enough. So my business just evaporated overnight. So I'm sitting there going, ooh, what on earth are we going to do now? And after I'd boarded out the loft and done a few other bits and pieces, I'm thinking, right, well, that's 2 weeks of lockdown sorted. What's next? And Simon, my business partner, he came up with the idea, Zoom a day, 4 people in a room, 1 hour, and was booked up almost instantly. And it took me 4 weeks to get on because it was that popular. But by the time I got there, he'd already started thinking about, oh, can we make this a business and whatever else. But commercially didn't have much of a clue about how to do that. Sorry, Simon, said with the greatest of affection and love. And I jumped into this meeting. And of course, everybody, as they always did subsequently when I was in those meetings, started doing this, the old university challenge thing, going, oh, isn't this great? It's just 4 of us. We can all have a chat, No one's mic's closed. It's, it's nice. We can have a chat. The energy's good. And so I'm listening to the conversation. I'm seeing people's reaction. I'm thinking, oh, this is pretty good, this. I'll do more of these. And then Simon happened to mention that he was thinking of turning it into a business, and I was poof, ears pricked up, and I'm like, ooh, this might just be exactly what I've been looking for. So at the end of the meeting, in the usual way that we did, is like, thanks very much, everybody. There'll be a thing coming up on LinkedIn. Take care. See you later. I just went, don't go anywhere. Stay there. Because I've known Simon for years anyway. And so I said to him, I said, is this kosher? He said, yeah. So I said, well, do you want me to have a look at your plan? You know, that's what I do. I'm at a loose end. Do you want me to have a look at your plan? He went, well, would you? Oh, yeah, of course I would. Well, let's do it now. So I'd look at that because I said, this is going to be massive. So I'd look at it and went, oh, God. I said, you need some money. So, well, have you got any? I said, bit. But we can't do it like this. We're going to have to build our own platform. We're going to have to do this. We have to do that. We're going to have to do the other. We can't keep it on Zoom. We've got to do this. We've got to have our own IP. We've got to look. We'll do it this way. And he looked at me and went, you're a lunatic. How on earth are we going to afford that? And I just went, that's my job. You go design it. And that basically set out our roles in the business. So Simon looks after product and I look after the business. Pretty much set them in stone from that point onwards. So we both have a hand in product, but Simon's the one that manages it out the door, works with the developers, does all the rest of it. And I make sure we've all got enough money to spend. And
just so people know, Chris, like this platform is up and running. There are people using this all the time now, right? And in terms of your next steps for this business, then you mentioned at the top that you're raising money, right? And you're looking for more investment, obviously, because this thing's growing, right?
Yeah.
So
we started out with a direct sort of port of our Zoom-based business into our IP, and it was very, very basic. I look back on it now and I go, ooh, we put that to market, you know. But it's one of the things, you know, you hang around people in tech companies often enough, everyone goes, yeah, my MVP was a piece of shit as well. Yeah, everyone's MVP, an absolute POS. Everyone's is exactly the same. You got to get to market quick, iterate fast. So we started with that, and as I say, that sort of just went a bit of a stuttering start. But we got out of the blocks and we got up and running, and actually that was pretty successful. And then we brought in an improved version with a different user interface, and we've just evolved it ever since. And our latest one, which is what we've been working to right from the word go, is one which has got sort of two speeds. So you can either turn up to a traditional Meow networking event, which is random, but with AI and stuff. We do matchmaking, and the more you use the platform, the better the matchmaking is. Or you can run a flag up our flagpole, if you like. You can say, I want to have a meeting about raising money, or I want to have a meeting about which bank is the best, or I want to talk about my product, or I just need help working out what my product market fit is. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I want to talk about cheese. Brilliant. Simon hates me using that one. Whatever it is, we've got Meows on at the moment. Is I do a weekly one about sales. I do one on a Thursday afternoon for founders. So come and just talk founder garbage with other founders for an hour. Shoulders are crying, etc., etc. Simon does stuff on design. Simon's an extraordinary designer. He does stuff on products. We've got a hypnotherapist doing sessions on there. We've got someone who does crafting as therapy. We've got copywriters on there doing newsletter open sessions just for an hour. But actually, they can go on as long as they want. There's all sorts. And if you don't find what you want, you can put a meeting on there or a Meow on there and invite people to share your stuff. So there's two ways to do it now. And actually, because people like being in control, the pre-booked stuff is showing loads and loads of traction, because that's how we're engaging with communities out there. So we have some other networking businesses. We have professional organizations. I'm a chapter director of Startup Grind, and the northern chapters of Startup Grind are now starting to use Meow to communicate, to network when we're not having events. Because that's actually a really important thing to say is I'm an extrovert. I get my energy from being around people, and I'm not suggesting for 1 second that this replaces traditional networking. Because I don't think anything can. I think you need to be in the space with people, you know, mixing it up and, you know, rubbing shoulders with people, and to really be able to get in amongst it. But I can't meet in the same meeting really any more than 3 people an hour, really. And that's what Meow facilitates. You look at groups in networking events, 4 people. 5th person comes in, I guarantee that group will splinter. And there's some science behind that I won't bore you with now, but it is quite interesting. Anybody wants the diagram, chris@meow.co, I'll send it to you. What we can't do in traditional networking is meet someone from Portsmouth, Perth, and Pontypool in the same meeting. Least of all, meet someone from, you know, Canada, Florida, and Sydney, Australia in the same meeting. Now, admittedly, you know, time zones and stuff, I make extreme examples to make a point. But we've facilitated cross transatlantic business. We've got people working with people in the Philippines because they met on Meow. You know, we've had people get jobs in Australia because of introductions that have been made. You know, that's the stuff that really validates the concept. That's the thing that gets me excited about it.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Chris. I was talking to a gentleman called Peter Benai, and Peter, he's wrote a book about remote first companies, and he's from Budapest. He works between Budapest and a little place in Italy, and he worked in London, like we both have.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, look, it got to the point in London with the traffic and the chaos, crossing the city for meetings. If I got more than 1 meeting a day, it was a bonus.
True.
It was such an upheaval. And it sounds like people, and I know because I've used the Meow platform, people are making real, genuine connections there that are really helpful to them,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I must ask about the name, though. Is there a story behind the name?
It's dead easy. Right. Everyone thinks it's got something to do with cats. Unless you're in Japan, I'll play that all day long. The Japanese love the cats. We'll go with that when we go into Japan. But it's not at all. It's one of those words, because we always set out to be a global business. It's one of those words that doesn't actually mean anything. It's a sound word. It's not language dependent. It's pretty cool, you know, whatever else. But it's also a portmanteau of meet now. And that's where it came from, is meet now, smash them together, which is why our Meow has 2 E's.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And once you've heard it, you won't forget it, right?
It's true. And I'll be honest with you, when Simon first told me about it, I didn't like it. He goes to me, it's going to be called Meow. And I'm like, no, it's not. You know, which meeting did we agree that in, Simon? And he's like, well, it's done now. I've done the brand treatment. I've spent all this time on it. It's done. So I looked at it and thought, well, I like the colors and I like the font show. I'm fine. I can live with it. You know, this is not a hill I'm prepared to die on. And actually, I love it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those. But yes, it's a portmanteau word. There you go. There's a new word for today. Use it in conversation when you can. Portmanteau word. Meet now. Smash together to make Meow.
It's great. Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. Well, look, I don't want to run out of time, and I do want to ask you some other questions, but thanks for sharing the sort of journey and the bit of the insights into Meow. But I want to ask you about yourself when you're learning or when you're reading. What kind of books do you read? How do you take on information? And what kind of stuff do you find yourself spending time with?
Okay. Well, I did an English literature degree, which pretty much ruined fiction for me, to actually sit and read it, because you can't help yourself. Sitting there going, oh, there's an essay in there somewhere. And it did, it completely wrecked it for me. So I consume books in 2 different ways now. So I have an Audible account, which if anyone likes books and hasn't got one, get one. I'm not on a commission from Amazon, by the way. I just think it's one of the best things that they've ever done. There's everything on there. And actually, I use that for schlocky fiction. So at the minute, I'm working my way through the Jack Reacher books, and I could never sit and read them. They would drive me insane. But what I can do is put my earphones in at night, and it takes my brain out of gear, which is something I would not be able to do getting into bed and closing my eyes. So Audible for me is literally a lifesaver. But when I read, I do read business books. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a voracious consumer of business books. I think, again, because I'm fairly intolerant of poor writing, and let's face it, the vast majority of business books are, they're written more badly than a Janet and John. I despair of whoever put some of them together. But the ones that are good, I will read and consume and reread all the time. And my favourite, if I can pull it out of the library, this one has saved my life on a number of occasions since we started this business. And if you are thinking of or have a business that does subscriptions, read that. It's superb.
So Subscribed is the book,
by Tien Tzu.
Very
really good in terms of that sort of stuff, and in terms of culture and stuff, because I've been in sort of leadership roles now for quite a long time, but never really been responsible for setting the culture in a business in the same way I am now. I would recommend anyone read that. Love or Hate the All Blacks. This is their philosophy about teamship, about what it means to be in that team.
Yeah, so
that's
Legacy. Is that the Legacy, or Legacy is the name of that book?
Yeah, it's called Legacy by James Kerr.
Yeah,
and it's a super read. It's very brief. It's a 2-afternoon book. But especially if you're even remotely into rugby, like you can see I am, it's got lots of resonance. But at the same time, what it shows is there's two ends to it. Is that the team has responsibility for you as members, as players, as teammates, but equally you have a responsibility both to the team and to your teammates. And it's the most plagiarized and hackneyed quotation now ever, and it's been ruined by a litany of recruitment companies and whatever else. And I used to be a recruiter, hands up. But no one will ruin a decent quote like a recruitment company splashing it on their wall. But their mantra is no dickheads. And for me, that says it all, really. Or as Bill and Ted might say,
that's good.
To each
and
other.
I just going back to what you're saying about Audible, I've been a long time customer of Audible. I think it's a wonderful product. That doesn't mean I don't like picking up a physical book. I do. But I think there is something very special about audio. I'd echo that comment.
Have you looked at your stats?
I do occasionally, not lately though. I got to be honest.
Bonkers.
Yeah.
It's bonkers how much time.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, mine plays for about 3 hours a night, whether I'm awake or asleep. So I probably have an inflated figure, but the amount of time you commit to that is incredible. I think I've got like about a year or more actually spent listening to books on Audible. Go and look at your stats, everyone. It's interesting reading.
Well, I like it because it's very easy to find, as you say, anything you want. It's pretty much there, as providing the publisher or the author has put out an audio version of it.
I haven't found anything that I wanted to listen to that wasn't there.
Yeah, it's very good. The other thing I wanted to ask you as well, while we're talking about sort of, sayings or advice, have you picked up any advice along the way, whether from your childhood or whether in business, or, when you've been working in these big organizations, or now scaling your own global technology company? Is there any advice that sticks with you, or any advice you'd share here?
From a personal perspective, it's advice that I've given myself, I suppose. looking back, I'm quite self-critical and always have been. But one thing, and trigger warning for anyone that's remotely bothered by profanity, there's going to be a little bit of profanity. So please beat me out if you want to, Simon. But I would absolutely say to my younger self, give fewer fucks. Absolutely 100% stop giving as much of a shit as you did, because that level of commitment is never mirrored by the business that you work for, and stuff tends to work itself out in the end. Now, that doesn't mean, for those of you who are watching and throwing your hands up aghast, that doesn't mean give no fucks at all. It means don't over worry about stuff that mainly about stuff that you can't control, or stuff that you've done that might not be right, but you've learned from, and whatever else. I used to tie myself up in knots. I used to beat myself up. And then as a consequence of that, became quite proud. And then as a result, wouldn't ask for help. And so it was a fairly awful spin cycle of, nonsense going on in my sort of mid to late 20s, early 30s, until I sort of came out of it and gone, oh God, what have you been doing? You spent all this time, trying to make money, being, variously successful at that. But what else have you been trying to do? Not a lot. So that for me, from my sort of now self to my earlier self, is be more fluid about stuff. And then the other one is what my old boss said to me when I finally did come out and say, I need some help. And it was like, don't ever be afraid to ask. Having been in a situation now where people come to me reasonably frequently with, whatever else, being asked for help is both flattering and extremely rewarding. And I don't know anybody, I certainly don't know anybody that I would ever work for, who would regard that as a sign of weakness or, a lack of competence. Quite the contrary. So, there's nothing groundbreaking from me there, but I think as rules for life, they're really, really important. Ask for help.
No, I hear you, because I think particularly when you're in, maybe it's to do with the earlier stages careers, and you're trying to make money and you're climbing the ladder and all that stuff. But when you have a chance to reflect, or at least this is coming from my perspective, you realize that a lot of it didn't really matter. And you shouldn't have cared maybe as much as you did, because it actually didn't help in the long run. And you should have been very focused just on the outcome. And so that I understand. And also asking for help. I think some businesses today, Chris, get it, and there's more of an open culture. But I can think back to maybe my father's generation.
Oh, absolutely.
It just wasn't there,
Work it out for yourself, sunshine. I remember sitting in a recruitment business I worked in years ago. It was a mistake to join it, and it was one of the best things that ever happened when I was sacked from it. I remember sitting there trying to get through to a guy, a perfect candidate for a guy. The working culture was absolutely toxic. I used to go and sit in my car at lunchtime and literally just put my head on the steering wheel and go, what the am I doing here? And trying to get through to this guy, and one of the senior guys sitting on the table next to me, literally next to me. I'd spent a week trying to get hold of this fella, trying to do everything I do, and I was a decent recruiter. And then he bollocked me for not doing it, and then said, "Well, why didn't you ask me?" And I said, "Well, I did." And he went, "Yeah, but why am I going to give you his phone number?" And I nearly jumped out of my seat and smacked him. And that's not me. I'm a fairly big unit, but I've never been a scrapper. And I nearly jumped out of my chair and cracked him. I just thought, how awful is that? You shitbag. What are you doing? And that was the culture then. And I do think the world's moved on. And I think if you find yourself in an environment where, especially as a younger person, you go to someone like me now and ask for help, and I tell you to go and work it out for yourself, just get out. Get out, leave, disappear, remove yourself from that horrible environment. Because there's no such thing as a job for life anymore, and anyone that is being asked to behave as though that there is again, you're getting conned. Stop it.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it earlier, because you mentioned culture when you're building a tech business, particularly when you're growing at scale and you're raising money, etc. The culture is really important, and people look at the team of people running it, don't they? They look at the technology, they make sure that works, of course, but it comes down to the culture and the ethos of the company and what the company does and doesn't stand for. And it's probably more important now than it's ever been, right, Chris? Particularly in your area.
It is really important, because the thing is, let's not mess about. Tech investment is fruit machine territory. You might win 100 quid for your 10p, or you might lose your 10p, and it's it can be as binary as that. We like to think we're a good bet, but we've got to convince people that we are. And part of the way you do that is by what you stand for. And I think culture-wise, when you're a really small team, culture really doesn't matter. Because I say it doesn't matter. That's not true. That isn't true. What am I saying? It's not true. When it was just Simon and I, we weren't worried about setting a culture, because we were the culture. It was our personalities that drove the business forward and all the rest of it. As soon as you bring other people in, you have to be absolutely mindful of the impact that little culture of two founders sitting in an office swearing and doing everything else, that will have an impact on other people. And either you bring people in to suit that culture, or you start creating the culture in the business that you want. And that's what we set out to do right from the word go, even as a very small company, was put an ethic together, if you like, without sounding too worthy, where we were always available, where it was output related sort of performance management, because I hate KPI nonsense. KPIs are something that you monitor to make a decision about how you have a conversation about output. You don't ever target someone on input. It's nonsense. I learned that in my time in recruitment. If you set someone a target of 100 telephone calls in a week, they'll hit 100 telephone calls in a week. And then they'll turn around and call you a so-and-so when you sack them for making no money. You told me that my target was 100 phone calls a week, so I made 100 phone calls a week. Oh, didn't we explain that your target was actually £10,000 in revenue a month? No. Okay, who's wrong? We're wrong, not the guy in question. And that's the point. It is very open, very honest, extremely accountable, and nothing. I don't think anything else is necessary. Our whole mission statement thing is to innovate with a smile on your face. That's our mission statement.
I love that. Innovate with a smile on your face. That's great. Yeah.
That's our mission statement. We went to see a lady called Nicola in the summer, and both Simon and I, it's the first time we'd spent with a referee, if you like, working on the business. Actually, what do we want to stand for? It was a conscious exercise that cost us a few quid, but was money extremely well spent, because that lays the foundation for, as we start to put bodies into the business, which will happen this year, they'll know what's expected of them. We'll know what we want them to achieve and how to go about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, culture and outputs and, doing it with a smile on your face, that sounds like a winning formula. So thanks for sharing that, Chris.
Hey, no problem.
Look, one of the last things I want to ask you about is as we record this, we've got quite an exciting year ahead for Meow. So what are you focused on? What's taking up your time? What are you thinking about over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months? What's taking up your sort of mental focus?
We're pretty single-minded this year. There's probably actually I say single-minded, and I say there's probably 2 or 3 things we're looking at. So we're not single-minded. We have a fairly low number of priorities this year. We've got to raise some money. We've got, like any tech business, we are feast and famine, and we are getting to the snotty end of our runway now. So, it's all starting to get a little bit squeaky, but we have a really healthy follow-on from our investor base now, which means we've got about 25% of the £1 million we want to raise committed already, which is brilliant. And one of the guys in question is particularly high profile, and his validation is extremely satisfying for me. So we've got some money to raise, and then we've got some people to hire. So over the course of the year, we'll be bringing a CTO into the business and a sales director into the business, because I simply can't do it all. And those two guys are there to achieve or help achieve the other two priorities, which are to grow our audience, because that's our absolute 100% most important thing, is to grow our audience. And what we found is that actually talking to community heads rather than individuals is a way to grow, infinitely faster. B2C, frankly, is too hard. And I understand where some of our potential investors were coming from when we said to them, they go, "What's your market?" We go, "It's direct to consumer, but we are, it's a B2B platform, but we have a direct to consumer model, and this is what's going on, and this is our marketing, blah, blah, blah." And they just went, "No, thank you." And I completely understand why. Because it's really hard. We've spent a load of time, sorry, I digress very briefly. We've spent a load of time working out where our product market fit is. That's pretty much what we spent our mezzanine round on, is iterating the product and getting our product market fit sorted out. And where it is bringing communities in gobs to sit in the platform and talk to each other, and talk to each other within that community, and talk to everybody else in the wider Meow community. So yeah, growing our audience, and then the CTO's there to deliver the technical challenges of the business. We still have development to do. We still have functionality to bring out. We still have stuff that needs to be made better within the platform. And that will be a process that never ends. So, there are, biggest priorities for this year.
It sounds like you have your hands full this year for sure, Chris. It sounds like you got a lot to do. You got a sales director coming in, a CTO coming in. You're raising funds. But I am interested, because I was talking. Well, I'll be talking again soon to Mark Schaefer, who's wrote a few books about branding and about businesses, and he's very well known online. And he's done lots of things over the course of his career. But there's a book that he wrote not too long ago, actually, about belonging to the brand. And one of the things, I'm just looking at it here, that he says is why community is the last great marketing strategy. And I think, that community element, and you mentioned Startup Grind. I know a few people in Startup Grind. That's a huge global community around the world. And I know you sort of look after a part of that, I think, in the Northeast, right?
Leeds,
yeah. So
Leeds is my chapter.
Yeah, so I think community is certainly a very exciting avenue, and I shall be watching from the sidelines. But it sounds like you've got a heck of a year ahead. And I suppose the last thing I want to say, Chris, or I want to ask you really, is there anything that we haven't touched on when it comes to Meow, or anything else that you're involved in that you'd like to share with our international audience? And if people are watching and they want to try the Meow platform, or if there's any communities that want to find out more, or any investors that want to reach out and get in touch, where do people get in touch with you? What's the best way to find you?
Easiest place to find me is on the website. So www.meow.com. It's now, the platform at the moment is completely free to use. That won't always be the case, but it's completely free to use. Jump in and get involved is all I'll say. If you've ever done networking online and you think you're ready to leave it all behind because you hate Zoom, come and give us a try, because I do guarantee that it is a different experience entirely. Anyway, that's enough of me pitching my product. Or if you've got a genuine inquiry about investment, or coming to work with us, or anything you can do to, if you want to bring your community into Meow, please email me, Chris Rabbitt, 2 B's 2 T's @meow.com, and I will endeavour to answer anything ASAP. But in terms of, anything to add, just come join us, come and find out what's going on. if you're someone who wants to find out a bit more about sales, if you're a small business person that needs to do your own sales, come and have a chat with me. Every week I'm there. Simon's there for design. There's all sorts of other stuff going on. Just come and see what's about. There's a brilliant guy called Tobin Harris, who's an app designer, runs a clinic every Thursday, I think, to say, come and bring your stuff, and I'll tell you whether you need an app or not. And what it might cost you. Because it's that sort of stuff is terrifying, particularly if you've never done it before. I think I need an app, and then someone starts throwing numbers like 250 grand at you, and you're like, maybe I don't need an app. But there's all sorts of stuff on there. Just come and have a look, see what you think. It's we believe passionately in it, so we'd love for you to try it.
Yeah, so people can just go to Meeow, meeow.com, and check it out, as Chris has invited you to do. There's an awful lot of learning and networking going on there. So having used the platform myself, I'd recommend you go and take a look and see all the exciting things that are going on there. Well, Chris, that brings me nicely to the end of the episode. Thanks for sharing all that insight and sharing a little bit about the Meow story. Continued success as you go through this year. And I want to thank everybody too who's been watching or listening to this episode, and to ask them to like, follow, subscribe, do all the usual things when it comes to podcasts. And I hope that you'll tune in again to watch or listen to more discussions with creatives, leaders and thinkers. So thank you very much indeed, Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you.
No, it's been great fun. Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening.